Alrighty, my friends, we just finished doing our linear graph, and I stopped the video because I wanted to make sure it wasn't too long. Alright, so now we're going to do our harder example, okay? So, in this case, f of x equals negative 2 x squared plus 8. Before we do anything, I want to make sure I know what shape it is. So, because I have an x squared, I know that that is going to be a quadratic graph. And remember my little memory trick was all right. So what this tells me is that it's going to be a U shape. Okay. Now, the other thing that I'm about to tell you is this negative sign in front is actually going to flip that U upside down. So what I'm actually going to end up with is, instead of being this kind of shape, it's going to be this kind of shape. Okay. And of course, I'm just going to say right now, you're going to have to put some arrows on the end of those. All right. These are the calculations I warned you about last week. Okay. So just a quick refresher. When we put in negative numbers, we're going to put them in parentheses. Okay. There's no parentheses here in our function rule, but we have to know where this x squared is. When we put our x values in, we have to put them in parentheses, because remember, if we write them this way, it's not correct, because this and this are not the same thing. This is going to be negative 25. This is going to be positive 25. And if you don't understand this, that means 1, 2, 3 of your values are probably going to be all screwed up. Okay. And the other thing we need to know too is, if you are a calculator fan, instead of doing the math yourself, understand there are parentheses here on your calculator. If you don't use them, your calculator is automatically going to give you the answer like this. And so don't tell me your calculator was wrong. That's you not giving your calculator enough information to make a good decision. All right, so let's start writing out this work, and I might have to write kind of small. Now, I gave you more points this time because I want to make sure you can see the pattern of this particular graph, okay? So, remember, so we're going to start off with f of negative 3 equals, remember the negative 2, put the negative 3 in parentheses, square it, and add 8, okay? Now, you could just go from left to right and type that into your calculator, right? So you can go, and remember, this is the negative sign. Don't use a subtraction for a negative. So negative 2 parentheses, negative 3 parentheses, x squared plus 8. You can do it that easy, okay? But you have to remember to put all the parentheses in the right place. So that's going to be negative 10. Now, I'm going to do it Mrs. Bat's way, okay? So, order of operations says I'm going to do the exponent first. Negative 3 to the second power is negative 3 times negative 3. That's positive 9. Positive 9 times negative 2 is negative 18. Negative 18 plus 8 is negative 10. Okay, I personally don't see any reason to use a calculator, but hey, let's get the answers right, whatever it takes. All right, next one is negative 2. F of negative 2 equals negative 2 multiplied by negative 2 raised to the second power plus 8. All right, I'm going to go ahead and show you on the calculator because I think many of you will prefer that. So negative 2, parentheses, negative 2, close parentheses, x squared plus 8. I'm going to tell you right now, negative 2 to the second power is positive 4. Positive 4 times negative 2 is negative 8. Negative 8 plus 8 is going to be 0. Let's see if Mrs. Bat is right. What a genius your teacher happens to be. Aren't you lucky? All right, now we're going to do f of negative 1. Negative 2 times negative 1 raised to the second power plus 8. All right, let's plug that in. Negative 2, parentheses, negative 1, close parentheses, x squared plus 8. I'm not going to hit the equal button yet. Negative 1 times negative 1 is positive 1. Positive 1 times negative 2 is negative 2. Negative 2 plus 8 is positive 6. Oh, I'm just killing it over here. All right. Now, notice the numbers are going down, okay? Now, what's going to happen, and this is how we end up with our U shape, is the numbers are going down for a little bit, and then they start going up, which they already sort of started doing there. All right, anything times 0 is 0, so here we get 8. All right. Actually, I said this wrong. This has been bugging me, so I'm like, something's not working out right. I said the numbers were going down. I'm wrong. They were going up because negative 10 is smaller than 0. So they're going up, and then they're going to start going back down. So I finally figured that out. That was not hitting me right. All right. Now we're going to start doing the positive numbers. And what you're going to find is what I call the boomerang pattern, okay? So negative 2 times positive 1 squared plus 8. 1 squared is 1 times negative 2 is negative 2 plus 8 is 6. Do you see we got the same value we got once before? Okay, so continue that. Two squared is 4. 4 times negative 2 is negative 8 plus 8 is 0. Look at that. So 8, 6, 0. Right now, what do you think we're going to get here? Okay, because it went negative 10, 0, 6, 8. 6, 0, I'm guessing that's going to be a negative 10 because it's like we went up and now we're going back down. Let's take a look. So f of 3 equals negative 2 times 3 to the second power plus 8. And notice I did put my positive numbers in parentheses as well when I squared them. It's not 100% necessary, but for some students it's better to stay consistent. All right. And I just said I think I'm going to get negative 10 because I think it's going to be the pattern. Let's see if my genius streak continues. Let's see. You ready? I did. Woohoo! All right. So what I want to point out here, when we have these quadratic graphs, there's going to be a point, we call it the vertex, where everything turns and goes the other way. All right. Usually in the kind of graphs you guys have, it's going to be at when x is 0 until we get more complicated into algebra 2. And now take a look. On each side of that, we have what I call the boomerang. So negative 1 and positive 1, they both give us the same output of y, that's 6. All right. Negative 2 and positive 2 both go in and give us the same output, which is 0. And negative 3 and positive 3 as input give us the same y output, which is negative 10. So I call this a boomerang. I've had students before say they think it's a rainbow. Let's go ahead and plot those points. All right, and I'm going to start here at my 0, 8, which is kind of my center point. So I'm going to go 0, 8. You can start from left to right if you want to. I just find it's easier this way, okay, because I follow my boomerang. So then negative 1 and positive 1, x values both have y's of 6. So it's kind of like you just do a mirror image. All right. Negative 2 and positive 2 for x both have y's of 0. All right. Negative 2, 0, mirror image. And then I wanted to make sure we had points all the way on our graph. We don't always put this many, but I personally find for drawing these, it's better to have more points than less. Negative 3 and positive 3 inputs both give us an output of negative 10. So we get this mirror image. So it's almost as if, do you notice, if I were to fold my graph in half right along the y-axis, it's like I would have a mirror image on each side. Now, remember, a parabola is going to be a smooth curve. So right now you're going to be tempted to like make this a V up here. Don't do it. So first thing we do is want to make sure this is a curve. And we freehand it, and since we're not using a ruler or anything, we're going to just do our best to make it a nice curve. All right. So notice this U is pretty skinny. And I'm going to tell you why in just a second. But let's label it. So this is f of x equals negative 2 x squared plus 8. All right, remember when we talked about parent functions on the other page, okay? I said the very basic quadratic graph was going to be a U that looks kind of like this, right? Remember, it's always like a, you could fold it in half. It's a mirror image on each side, okay? It's like the left side's a reflection of the right side. This one's not super skinny like what we have, okay? And it's also opening up. So what did we do different here? All right, so let me talk about that. So the negative 2 x squared plus 8. All right, what happened? The negative sign is what made my graph turn upside down. The 2 made my graph skinnier. And the 8 moved my graph up 8. Okay? So where you're going to go with this is when you get to Algebra 2, we're going to be able to, instead of making a table, you'll be able to like understand these transformations. All right? And you're going to do this same thing with all kinds of different functions. You're going to be able to understand by changing the parent function. Is it going to flip it upside down? Is it going to make it fatter or skinnier? Is it going to move up or down? And then you're also going to learn how to move graphs left or right. But for today, all we're going to do is fill out a table, plot the graphs, make sure we have a smooth curve here. So smooth curve. We got to have the, and that's of course up here. We got to have the arrows on the ends. And we also have to label it with the function rule. Okay, so these are some requirements from Mrs. Bat. All right, that was a long video. Hopefully you understood it. Go forth and practice, and I will see you back in class.